Okay, Stanley Kruger is my name, and I worked out there about 30 plus years. And I worked there from 79 to 2011, and I worked almost every building in that plant. I started out, I worked about half my time as a mechanic, and the other time in production. But I worked from one end of the plant from the other. In other words, they usually call it cradle to grave. Well, I started out being the drum dumper, which we brought the ore in and dumped it. And Howard was talking about when you dump the Russian ore and stuff, I was one of them that dumped it. And he said, like the regular ore, it looks like dirt and stuff. This is true. But when you got to the Russian drums, which they say now supposedly we didn't drum, the DOE drums, when you got to them and you tried to pop the lid, you couldn't pop it hardly, so we had a big long pry bar that you hooked onto the thing, and when you got it where it would finally get a little air to it, the lid would fly off, and a lot of these would be fluorescent. They'd be like bright orange, bright yellow, greenish orange, and the stuff would just linger in the air. So yeah, you always wore your respirator. A lot of times you wore rubber gloves and a rubber coat because that stuff got over your coveralls. And one of the other things that he mentioned, you know, you walked around all day with that stuff on your coveralls, so that was another aspect. They had their own laundry there, and when they washed the coveralls in the laundry, put them on, they'd go to your locker and you'd put them on, and then you'd go to the safety department to get your rubber coats, gloves, face shields and stuff, but you walk by a Geiger counter there, and immediately the Geiger counter would go off while you're getting your rubber gear because the clean clothes you put on were just as hot as the day you left there. And that was day to day, and we complained about that constantly, and they just rewashed. And I hate to even think how bad that water was that went out of the washing room from there.
Where did it go?
Well, it eventually went to EPF, which is one of the recycle places. That's
Water
also a place.
I was just mentioning
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
Water was discharged.
Yeah. Like I say, I worked in almost every building. I started out in drum dumping, then I ended up going to ore prep, which processes the ore that you dump. And I was an operator and assistant operator there. But when you worked in ore prep, you worked in green salt part of the time. They just designated you to be a helper in green salt. And that's where I got to dump some of those phenol drums, the little 15-pound drums that had the plutonium in them. But before I got to dump them, I actually was a mechanic working on the dumper that would break. Those little drums, you had to build a special process in that dumper to dump them little drums. So a buddy of mine and I got to fabricate that and work inside of that where it dumped, and it was constantly breaking. So we was in there re-welding that all the time. And I'm sure that was one of the hottest places in the plant too, you know. But, you know, in working there, from building to building to building, you wore the same coveralls, you were exposed to whatever leaked. In ore prep, we had a lot of leaks on the process equipment because they had a vacuum system that was wore out and outdated. And you was constantly taking a sledgehammer and beating on it. Well, what do you do when you beat on a metal pipe? With a sledgehammer, it squashes the pipe. And eventually the vacuum don't work anymore because it plugs right there at that squash part. So then you get up and you beat on it on the top to try to unsquash it. So we never had a vacuum system that worked during, so constantly we had dust outs. Well, that same Russian ore that I dumped outside and put into the system went from one end of that building plumb to the other and ended up in the USEC process, but still all those leaks and everything contaminated the whole building. And then if you had a dust out, the fans would blow it to the outside, and that's why they're finding this material in the houses in Metropolis. And if you read that article in the Metropolis paper, what's really fun about it, they say we didn't dump this stuff, but they're supporting our argument. Because the same stuff they're finding in the attics of the houses is the sister products of the bad stuff they say we didn't dump in the first place. Wonder how that happened. So, thank God that they're doing this. This helps support what they say we didn't do. So somewhere, somebody's got to find out that we really did do it.